And drive they did. Brighton-based noise rockers DITZ toured relentlessly after the release of their acclaimed debut album, The Great Regression, forcing the band to write their highly anticipated second album, Never Exhale, on the road. Here is singer Cal Francis and guitarist Jack Looker to tell us how they handled those high expectations.
And I try not to let them kind of influence what we do or what I try to write it in terms of my input to the band. But yeah, by reading them, it lingers in the back of your head, doesn't it? So it's always, yeah, a little bit, I suppose.
All right. And Cal, what were you thinking?
No, I the opposite. I couldn't care less what anybody thinks. I'm more worried. I'm always more worried that it's going to sound too much like something that I'm listening to at the moment. You know, that's I worry about that more than what people think about their entitled opinion. You know,
what were you listening to? Do you remember?
I mean, a lot of everything, which helps because it disguises the fact that you're influenced. It disguises your influences if you've got a lot of them, I think. So.
Yep. Because I mean, that's basically that's how new things happen. It's the distillation of the stuff that's come before it, and kind of rethinking and rejigging, and nothing's really new. Have you seen the new Bob Dylan movie? Because that kind of shows how that works.
I haven't seen that yet. No. Instead, I watched the Robbie Williams film. I don't know if you've seen that. Yeah, that was quite fun though.
Yeah, I've never been a big Robbie Williams fan, but I haven't seen the film yet. But I'm impressed by what I've heard about it so far.
It's pretty weird, and that was unexpected. But I guess he's always been a bit of a weird guy.
I think so.
You know?
Yeah. My nan loves him. I absolutely adored him back in the day. Yeah. I don't think I'll be watching it, but yeah.
I mean, you should definitely like give it a go. It's really strange.
He irritates me too much. Like I can't get on with him. Like he's probably a lovely bloke. I've obviously never met him, but I couldn't do it. Yeah.
All right. Enough of Robbie Williams. Let's talk about the band here. So how did this second album start formulation for you guys? Were you right into it after the first one? Was there some downtime, some thinking about it? How did
There was a few songs that were written fairly soon after the first album, and it didn't all happen at once. We kind of just plodded along touring for the last 2 years, and on days off on tour we'd write a few songs, and or downtime back at home when we weren't working, we'd all write individually and bring them to the table. Yeah, it wasn't really done in one session, really, or like done in a short amount of time. It was over pretty much as soon as we finished recording the last album. One of the first ones, or the first ideas, was written, and then just bit by bit from there, really.
Right, because you had to write it on the road because you're on the road all the time. For a lot of people, songwriters don't like that. Others thrive on that. So obviously, you did pretty well with the situation at hand.
Yeah, I think we have got quite a good mix. I mean, it seems like we're on tour all of the time. You know, there's only a few months of the year where we don't have a show. But I think we've got a healthy mix of doing stuff on the road together and doing bits at home as well. Like we never rehearse at home. We never come together and write at home. The only time we rehearse at home is before a tour to learn all the songs, pretty much. So, yeah. So, yeah, it was a good mix, good balance, I think.
Right.
I think we've struggled in the past to write together. I think the first few times we tried it for the first album, it just ended up sounding like the fucking Blues Brothers. So
that's not where you're
which is fine, but it wasn't. Yeah,
if you're John Belushi,
yeah, exactly. Yeah, 12-bar finger clicking and all that, jiving. Yeah.
And Cal, what about lyric wise? Do they come easy for you? Are you was out there looking for stuff?
I'd say yeah. I'll write stuff down all the time, so I can usually sort of match the rest of the guys' energy. You know, whenever they've sort of got something to the point where they think they've got a finished track, usually I've got something in the bag somewhere for it. and I like that way of writing. And sometimes I do it the other way around as well, a little bit. But yeah, I think it does come quite easy to me sometimes. Yeah, every now and then you stare at a piece of paper and you're like, oh, that's just shit, all of it. But then you go like it can be different every time. So yeah, I think I just need to find the right page in the notebook whenever I'm listening to something new that they've done, and then that's the one.
Cool, cool. And I think you have a guy named Seth Manchester has worked with you, is producing the thing. What does he bring to the table?
I mean,
Uh,
we originally wanted to go and do the whole thing with him, but we split it up and recorded over here, and he kind of mixed it more
Right.
than produced it, I'd say. I don't know, like, yeah. But I think we wanted to work with him for ages, haven't we, Cam?
yeah, I mean, what he brings to the table and what he did bring to the table is, I think he's got a way of making horrible music sound crystal clear, and I think that's really impressive and kind of hard to come by because lots of people who record these types of records, they don't seem to, they'll lean into the noise in a certain way that can muddy it, and I just think there's none of that on any of the records that Seth's done. um and that's the thing that I really like, I really like that he brought that to this record, because I mean, you can just hear everything, and everything's got the impact it should have.
It's almost like he brings, like I mean, I don't know, I'm not Seth, so I don't know how he approaches stuff, but it's almost like he has a kind of hot music production that he brings to these bands that he works with, isn't it? It's this it all pops in the right places, and it's crystal clear, and there's so much focus on every instrument and everything. He's almost pretty much everything he's ever done. So
Right. And as a listener,
Sure.
it sounds very live. It sounds spontaneous. Was there a lot of takes and a lot of mulling over things, or did it kind of come easily when you
I think I
was
think
in the studio?
I think less so than the first album,
No,
definitely. I think yeah.
I'd say that sort of energy comes from our drummer Sam, who didn't do very many takes on when he was in there. Everything else, kind of has to go off that, like in a way when it comes to recording the parts, and it, the drums are the leader, um, and everything else is just merely an embellishment in a way. So I think that sort of live energy is entirely down to Sam, and the way that he played it. Um,
I think before we've kind of done the whole thing ourselves and tracked the drums with us playing in the room maybe once or twice, and then gone off and let him do his overdubs. But I think this album we all stayed in the room for a bit longer, and so all the takes kind of all the comp and the comp of Sam's final, or the final edits of Sam's drums were more. He was still in the room with us, so there's more energy in there this time as there might have been on previous records, but not even the album, but before the last album as well.
Right.
I think it's quite important as well to get. I mean, I'd say a large amount of the character of the band when you watch this live comes from the way that Sam plays the drums. I mean, he. I mean, there's not very many drummers that I've ever seen that hit as hard as Sam, and play with that sort of energy. Um, and I think it's sort of like it was very, very important to get Sam's character across, and not just turn him into a robot drummer for the purposes of recording
Yep.
an album, because at the end of the day, it's almost like the record is a advert to come and see us live.
It's not how records used to be, is
And
it? Where you'd kind of the tour would supplement the record. It's more like the record supplements the touring now, the live show.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And of course,
And I think, yeah, I just
oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yeah, no, I just think it's important that that aspect of it is like accurately represented, the drums and the rhythm and the energy in that way.
Gotcha. Now, Jack, you have another guitar player to play off of, Anton. So I'm kind of curious how much you and he discussed beforehand how it's going to go, so to speak. Who's going to do what?
I think we kind of know we know where our strengths lie, where our weaknesses lie, and where we lie stylistically as well. So I think I provide more of the weight, and I'm kind of more akin to probably closer to Caleb than I am musically than Anton. I think Anton creates the space and the atmosphere and the ambiance, if you will, more so than I do. And I kind of, I mean, what did you say the other day as well? Like, I do the riffs and Anton does the embellishments and
yeah. But it's like
the interest and stuff.
I think it's like you're the bones and he's like the sort of fat of it in a way, or because I think you provide the structure to the song and then Anton, sort of watercolors it in. He's got quite a unique way of playing guitar. He doesn't really. There's very few moments when it's like traditional guitar playing at all. Again, it's one of those things that makes DITZ is that we sort of all the parts are sort of compartmentalized quite well, and different people have different roles in that way, and the mix between Anton and Luca is one of the most sort of obvious examples of that. I think it's not really like clear cut like left and right, so you wouldn't be able to pick it out like that. But I guess it's almost like he's like Anton's a lead guitarist in a sort of totally non-traditional sense. But yeah.
Yeah, I think of like television. They had two guitar players, Tom Verlaine and Richard Lloyd, who had different styles that kind of played off.
Yeah, I think another good one in terms of like, I mean, I think me and Anton will be the first to admit that we're not the best guitarists in the world, but and like I think I'm fine with that. I mean, one of my favorite bands is the Pixies, and they're quite clearly not the best guitarists in the world, but they write some of the changed guitar music from influenced Nirvana, like arguably one of the biggest bands of the 90s. So
yeah,
yeah, I'm fine with that. I'm not going to start sweep picking and doing solos everywhere because it's not me and it's not. I don't think it's really necessary,
Sounds like shit.
I think Anton would be the same. Yeah, and it sounds shit as well. Yeah.
And I think I read somewhere that you were originally planning on recording this album in Rhode Island, of all places. Is that true, and why? Yeah. What's in Rhode Island?
Yeah, I think
Seth.
Yes, that's Seth's studio.
Oh, okay.
That was the original intention.
Yeah.
We only couldn't do that because we booked a slot in, which we had to cancel because we got offered a tour, and like as we said earlier, I think guest touring has taken priority over recording for us again. So that came first,
He's a busy man as well, so there was no chance of us doing it just afterwards by the time that the tour would come through. So
gotcha. Yeah. So do you see that priority changing over the years from touring to recording and one taking over the other in a different way?
I think we were from when we started, that's kind of the state the industry was in. Like it's as long as I've been playing as long as we've been playing as a band anyway, we're not good, we don't do it for the money, but we're not going to make a living off. Yeah, no, yeah, thank God for that. We're not going to make any money off selling records. So the touring has to take priority because that's what keeps the band running financially at the end of the day.
Yep. All right. And we haven't talked about any particular track, so maybe I'll just throw a title out there we can touch on before we wrap up. God on Speed Dial, which I think there's a mention of Joseph K in there. So I've read the trial, so obviously, so have you. What can you tell me about how that track together?
Today I feel like Joseph K, but I've got more lives than a cat does, and I shed my spines like a cactus as I block my lines as an actress. I'm on my way to get flowers, but Haile Selassie, I wanna know how he does it. Has he got God on a speed dial? God on a speed dial? God on a speed dial? God on a speed dial?
The start of the tracks, Genesis, I had that lyric for ages.
Yeah.
I mean, like really, like probably 3 or 4 years before we put it into a track. I mean, I always find Joseph K to be a relatable character. I think most people who've read the trial also do. I kind of, the point of that track was I was sort of juxtaposing, that sort of logical, sort of over logical thinking with some, real life heroes that seem, almost a bit implausible when you actually think about what the story is behind it. I'd like to do that. I remember the moment when we sort of had the instrumental for that. It was me and Jack were in a studio that we used to rent. It was just a small lockup, and Jack had that riff, and it was like I liked the riff, but as soon as you went into the live room and put drums to your own riff, and then I remember sort of like that eureka moment of like, finally found a bit for these lyrics. Yeah, I think that's one of my favorites on the record.
Excellent. Anything to add to that, Jack?
Listen, I have no input in the lyrics whatsoever. I don't read, I'm afraid. I'm all music.
Yeah, but
sorry.
So, yeah, we don't have to talk about the lyrics with you, but musically, what do you remember about it coming together?
But just like look out. I mean, it's hard. I mean, like Cal says, I do sort of same as Cal. Like I worry about what I'm listening to influencing me, but that was one of those ones where it was almost just like a stream of consciousness, where like the guitar part had come down, and put that down, then put the drums on it, and the bass afterwards, and it was almost just like I don't know. That sounded like a bit of a twat. It came naturally, really. Like it was, like in work mode, and it was just like reading one thing off after another, and it's just what came out. There was no rhyme or reason or any method or any like pre-thought. It was just it all seemed to work. Like I had the idea of the drums. I had the idea for the drums as I'd done the guitar part, and then the bass came. Like the bass came after that, like the sliding bass. Yeah.
All right.
It's not very interesting, I'm afraid.
I think we did it, like if I remember correctly, we did. So the bass was slightly later because we had you had the drum bit and the guitar part in, and I took a 58 and like did the vocal part, and then you sort of decided like, here's where it splits into the second half of the verse and stuff.
Yeah.
But the verse wasn't quite finished then. So
it was just one drum loop, wasn't it? I think I'd gone in and played a load of drum parts, and I think I chopped it. Yeah.
The bass creates the sort of motion in the song, doesn't it? Because it starts off with just like and then it's got like it's got the slides at the end as well that sort of like accent what the vocals do in that bit.
Yeah.
It's a really good one to play live. I've like the past couple of days we've did tour shows like for the record release, and I keep forgetting how much of a fun one it is to like. It slots together really well, and it's one of those ones that it feels really tight to play as a band because it's, I don't know, it's just got a decent pocket to it, I guess.
Right. That helps. Yep. All righty. One more question for you. You mentioned kind of worrying about sounding like music that you've been listening to. One of the bands that has been bandied about that's influential to you is Jesus Lizard, and they had a new album out recently. I'm wondering if you kind of look to somebody like that who's doing similar things, not the same, but they're a bit older. Do you see yourself kind of doing that in 20, 30 years time as well? And, you know, David,
we actually all went we all went to go and see them the other week.
Oh, how was it?
Yeah, fucking incredible. Like I found I like admittedly I found them really late. Like I only found them after not long after I joined the band.
Right.
Through like Cal and like my partner as well. But yeah, like it'd be great. I've never really personally wanted like instant success and wanted to be a flash in the pan. I think if we had to follow anyone's career trajectory, it'd be someone like Mogwai, where they've started in the mid-90s, first #1 album on their last 20 years after they'd started, after 20 years after the first one. Like I think that'd be great, just a bit of longevity, so keep it ticking over for ages.
I think that the thing for me about like the Jesus Lizard in that regard is when we saw them play, I mean, it's a band whose music I loved. I listened to that new album. I thought, this is still quite good, I was like, sure, it's not as good as one of the classics, but it is still quite good.
Yep.
Then when we wanted to play live, I couldn't believe like they were as old as they were up there playing. Like the drumming was just like everything about it was great. If we can do that when we're their age, then I'll be very happy,
Excellent.
What David Yale's secret is.
Well, I did interview him a little while ago. Check it out and see if he reveals anything. I'll send you the link.
Yeah, please do. Yeah. Who did you do it with? Was it with David? Was it just with David, or was it with a few?
It was just David, yeah.
Just David, yeah.
Okay. Yes. Anyway, okay, I'll let you guys go. Thank you both for taking part in this. It's very exciting. And come on down to New Zealand. The weather's great, and hopefully we'll stay that way for a couple more months.
What's the visa situation like? Because we've only never been to the States because the visas are too expensive.
It's easier here than in the States. I know that for a fact. So
the longer flight though, isn't it? Right. Well, we'll have to do a bunch of shows if we do come.
Yeah.
Like
You can go to Australia too if you have to.
That's true.
I'm sure they'd like it. All right. Very good. Thanks, gents. Have a good one.
Thank you very much, Marty.
If you enjoyed this episode of the 13th Floor's Music Talk series, please be sure to subscribe to the website or to the YouTube channel. Follow us on Facebook or Instagram and wherever you find your podcasts. There's a whole lot more to discover.